On this episode of Leslie and Castelnaudary, come on a visual journey into my art collection at my home. The artist you're going to meet now is Rebecca Gunter. She is somebody who I have known since my childhood. We met in high school when she moved down from New Jersey and she didn't have many friends. And I saw her, I thought she was so cute. She had this like frenetic kind of like nerdy energy that was trying to bust out. But what I know now after all these years was that was pure creativity trying to come out of her. And we would write notes to each other and pass them in school because this was the time before phones and text messaging and social media. We did it the old fashioned way. And inside of her notes, she would draw these gorgeous characters. She would draw me, she would draw my friend Jasmine, she would draw herself, and she would pass them to me. And oh gosh, she's such an amazing artist. And she would spend all her time in high school on paint drawing these characters. Eventually, she went out after college and started to be a professional artist and doing commissions. She was one of my very first clients who I helped to help her negotiate and communicate and do her career, and her way of thanking me was giving me art. This piece right here is the monarch from the Venture Brothers and all of the characters inside of it. And I was a huge Venture Brothers fan in college, still am. I even have the Dr. and Mrs. the Monarch costume, and even Frank has the Monarch costume. I love this character. And so she did this for me as a way of saying thanks. She's done several other pieces for me that I have commissioned and that she's given to me as gifts. And now she designs video game characters for some of the biggest games in the world. And she does amazing commissions, and she specializes more in the anime space. So if you are interested in that kind of work, you definitely should give Rebecca a follow. She's not Rebecca Gunter anymore. She's Rebecca Ryan, but I always call her Rebecca Gunter. She's an amazing, loving family who I find to be inspirational for me, because when I was in high school and I was homeless at some points, her parents took me in and inspired me and gave me advice about living. And I have to say, I owe a lot of my success to the motivation that her own mother had given me. So her friendship means a lot to me. You could even see in this frame right here, I had this piece of art recently framed, and I had them do a piece of wood that looks like pencil because it was just kind of like this. Here is hand drawn, and she did this illustration for me, and I treasure it to this day. Not to mention, it also reminds me at the beginning of my career of all the people I helped in the beginning of their career and how far we have all come. When you have talent, you need to stick with it. You need to grow it. But I also want to say it's important to have a group of people around you who support your art, who are enthusiastic about your talents and your vision, and want to either invest in it, participate, collaborate, or even share with others and encourage you to continue doing it. I think as an artist, as a storyteller, that is very, very important. On this stop of the art tour, you're going to meet Evan Shoman. He is a celebrity portrait artist and professional athlete artist. He does everything in basketball, baseball, MMA, you name it. He's done it. I met him through my former hairstylist and one of my best friends, Lori Shoman. They co-parent together, an amazing young man who they raised together. And he is an incredible artist here, Evan Shoman. I was trying to come up with a vision for my book, La Liberacion, very spicy, sexy romance novel, feminist fiction set in the old timey days. And I was wondering, who am I going to get to illustrate this cover? And I was explaining the project to Lori, who said, I know exactly who you need to hire. I met with Evan and we hit it off right away. He is a Leo. He's got that big, bold personality, and he has a talent to back it up. And we worked together and we had so much fun laughing, and he immediately got this vision. And what you see behind me is pencil drawing. This guy works with only like 5 pencils, and he will draw for you gorgeous faces. Faces are his forte. And I have to say, he captured the essence of the characters in my book perfectly, putting it on paper for me. And what you see here is the original. He scanned it for me. He designed the cover as well because he is a trained graphic designer, and we worked on this project together, and it came out perfectly. I wanted to give my book almost this old-timey diary vibe that looks like leather and embossed with gold, and he helped me design this, and we laughed so much together. We had so much fun. So much fun that we are working on another cover for my book. It's a legal social justice book called Bad Laws, how American legal history reveals the American character. And it is a very interesting cover, and he has been working on it for months for me. So stay tuned with that. In this piece, you have a piece from Colette. This is a print with a signature from him. It was actually a gift from a cousin of mine who I had coached at a point in his career. And he was an art dealer in Switzerland, and the way of thanking me was sending me a couple of pieces. And one of those pieces is this one. Colette is a very interesting artist here in Europe, and you can see his stuff all over, and what he does is kind of like a graffiti, but it's not really a graffiti. It's more of like these vinyl stickers that he puts on government property. And so it kind of is and it's kind of not, but it's kind of like a Banksy kind of vibe. So this piece right here is a print. I had it framed, and inside of this frame is a velvet mat with a yellow frame that goes around it. And it's so much fun. And it reminds me really of all the gifts that I receive from people who I've helped in their life in even a small way. Honestly, I didn't really do very much for him, but this here is just kind of like when you do something small and nice for somebody, it always comes back to you in a wonderful way. So I'm very grateful for this. This piece here is not a real artist. This is a copy. My mother-in-law is obsessed with the artist from Paris called Cricky. Now, I may say she owns original Cricky pieces, and so do her friends, but she's so obsessed with this artist that she makes her own copies and inspirational pieces from this artist. So this is a gift that she gave us as a move-in present for moving back to France from the United States. And this is a Tyrannosaurus Rex with CDs. And Cricky, at one point in his career, did CDs. These CDs are actually really hard to find because they do not have any words inside of them. There's no print inside the circle. And so she makes these pieces for us. And she actually has several smaller pieces in her beach house in the south of France near Saint-Tropez. And they're just fun and funky vibe. And Cricky does amazing stuff, other things, otherworldly, alien-esque type stuff. And this is just one of these pieces. And what you see here is a canvas that has actually been cut out, so you could stick your finger through it. It's actually quite fragile. And then on top here, she puts like a plaster on top to give it texture, and she draws the line and paints them. She is a Virgo, so she is very detail oriented, and I think like that kind of sign gives her the ability to have very fine details, like the fine lines and the perfectionism of this piece. And I will show you another one that she did for us that always gets major commentary from everyone who visits our house. The next piece is a copy of one that her friends actually owns from Cricky, and this is the turtle one. I used to have this in our bedroom, and during open houses, people would comment on this, and we ended up putting it in our kitchen because we just think it's so funny. Humor is a big thing in my family's house. We have to have humor. So we put this in the kitchen, and it's just a gigantic statement piece. And you have, again, the special CDs that don't have the words, and then my mother-in-law made this copy for us, and it is a copy of a larger piece that Cricky did for one of her friends that hangs in Reims. So do you think it's funny? Would you hang something like this in your house? Everybody always comments on it. What do you think? This is a piece that I am very proud to own. This is from a friend of mine, Wesley Van Eden. You know him by his artist name as Reserborg, and this piece right here is one of, I think, his magnum opuses. You also will know him in South Africa as a muralist. Now, that takes muscle. It takes grit. It takes gigantic vision, because Wesley does the hugest pieces of muralistic art on stadiums, on school places, restaurants. This guy is so prolific, and the detail of his art is unmatched. I have been following his career for amazingly, I want to say, gosh, 12 years at least. And he and I met through my contributions at Malachi.com when I was the career development expert contributor giving advice articles on the newsletters and the website for Malachi.com. And I would also do guest panels whenever they did events to get people to network. And he was somebody who designed clothes and art for different brands like Volcom. And we started to hit up a friendship, he, my husband, and I, and just started talking and helping him a little bit in perspective with his career, but just kind of being friends. And I hired him to do some art for me on a project. And then one of the pieces of art that he did is on the cover of one of my books called Windows of the Soul. And he does so many things. He does digital, he does clothes, he does murals, he does actual paints and artwork. And this one he had shown in Hong Kong, and I fell in love with it and I had to buy it right away. And this piece is called Race Against the Battery Percentage. He has his own story about it. And what you actually see here are the words bliss, which is really interesting for me because I think it's like a Rorschach test, because sometimes I see boss and sometimes I see blues and sometimes I see babe. So that's kind of like how I see it. But it's also really funny because with Frank having severe ADHD, his battery is usually at like 2 or 3% on his phone. And we just thought it was the most cosmic wink from the universe because it was like a statement to Frank. But the detail of Wesley Van Eden's work, Reza Borg's work, over the years has gotten more and more fine detail. And if you just look at this piece, it looks gorgeous from far away. But if you look up close, the details are incredible. And it is one of my favorite pieces. I had this one framed with a black floating frame and gold on the outside, and the framers had the gold match the gold in the print. It is one of my prize pieces of art, and one of my great friendships with artists is with Wesley. And so if you are interested in art like this, you definitely should buy some of his art. You should follow him on Instagram. He is an amazing artist, and not to mention a fantastic, kind friend. He is a wonderful human being who I admire. So you should definitely check out his art. What you see here above me is a piece of art from the artist Mike Parillo. Mike Parillo is an LA-based artist. He is a badass guy. And a lot of his work exploded when he did collaborations with a snowboard company called LibTech. That was, gosh, close to 15 years ago. And my husband Frank worked at Solomon Snowboards as a product line manager for their men's snowboards and collaborated with a lot of artists. So we kind of swung in that snowboard world. And I was so enamored by Mike Parillo's art. He's done so many amazing commercial things, and you kind of are very spiritual and otherworldly. And of course, knowing me, I'm into that. So I got in touch with Carl, who was his art dealer at the time. And Carl made me an amazing deal for this particular piece. And this one is of space telescope. This is digital right here, space telescope images of the universe. And then Mike actually painted a plane going, breaking through the sound barrier in space. And this was kind of like one of my prize pieces of art. I bought it for about $900, and that for me was a ton of money at the time because Frank and I had no money and we were at the beginning of our marriage. And it was one of my prized possessions. And this is something that really inspires me so much. And I am a huge fan of Mike Parillo, and his work has exploded in value these days. So I don't even know how much this is worth now, way more than what I bought it for. But it is something that in the beginning of my life as a young person, having no money, when you pay that much money for a piece of art, you definitely treasure it and you value it. And as a result, I've grown my art collection, but it's kind of one of those things where you as a young person, you build your life. You put it together a little bit at a time. So this is my Mike Parillo piece. This here is a piece from an artist called Van Bin, who is local here in the southwest of France. He is an Asian artist, and he is also famous for doing the longest calligraphy in the world. And Franck and I found this piece in an art dealer, Galerie de la Cité in Carcassonne, France, which is a gorgeous medieval bastion, castle, fortress in here, the south of France, not too far from our home here in Castelnaudary. And what is cool about this piece of art is that the kind of like the blood here, when you put on these 3D glasses, you will see the blood splatter 3D out. And it is the coolest experience. And we bought this from Philippe at Galerie de la Cité and just hit it off with him. We bought a ton of art from him, statues for our garden and other pieces. And I really like this Van Bin piece. And Van Bin is kind of exploding right now in the world. He has exhibitions in different places in the US and Miami, and he's definitely somebody to follow. But if you like Asian art, inspired art, I definitely recommend Van Bin. This piece right here is one of my all-time favorite pieces, something that I had dreamed of owning for a long time. It's almost like that same feeling when you watch Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City with the Jimmy Choo shoes. This Kim Bagwell is the piece de la résistance for me. I saw this piece in an art gallery that she and her husband own, curated in Joshua Tree, Palm Springs area. And I instantly fell in love with this piece. And at the time, I was renovating my house, and all my money was going there to repipe, renovate, fix up my house. And so I had no money. And I remember looking at this piece of art going, if nobody buys this, one day I will own this. And that was in 2019. And it wasn't until 2024 when I was following her Instagram, I saw this piece in it. And I was just like, oh my God, there it is, Santa's Village. And I messaged her and I said, is this piece for sale? And by a miracle, it still was. And so I bought this piece, and she and her husband, who also is an artist, drove from LA and delivered this personally. And we shared Cokes and we talked on our back patio, and I got to know Kim Bagwell. And it was an amazing experience for me. This piece of art is just pure vibes for me. The way that she paints, the light, the faces, and I love art with children in it. And she says that this is her and her sisters back in the day at a place called Santa's Village, and it's based on a real photo, and it's just a moment. It's a vibe, it's an energy, and I fell in love with it. And this painting haunted me for years and is one of my all-time favorites. And for me, having Franck, he made this frame to match our couch, to match our living room. And it really goes with the skin tones that she puts in here in the brown. And she said that this is the real image of her. And then she put this kind of like fantasy background of nature. And it is so cool because in this particular house, we have different spirits. And one of the spirits in this house is a blonde girl. And I'm kind of wondering, like, did we kind of attract that? I don't know. But it's really cool to see this piece of art. It inspires me every day. I love it. It in a weird way, this piece reminds me of the feeling of all my dreams coming true. So if you are interested in kind of like this really cool, otherworldly kind of like, I don't know, like Sofia Coppola vibe. I don't know. It's just kind of like that indie vibe. You need to follow Kim Bagwell and her work. And her husband also does bird paintings, and they are amazing. And I'm a huge bird fan. So definitely check out this artist. It's one of my favorite pieces in my home. So when I was growing up in Orange Park in Jacksonville, Florida, I grew up very, very poor. I grew up in trailer parks, and we lived in roach-infested houses, and we went shopping at the dollar store, the Dollar General, the day-old bread store, and flea markets. And because of that experience, I learned a lot about antiquing. And when I was in college, I would find antiques and furniture on the side of the road, and I would refinish them and I would sell them on Craigslist. And that was how I would make money because I had to support myself. My parents did not financially support me at all once I moved out at 17. And so that was another way of me making a living for myself, paying my way through college. And so antiques are a great way for me to kind of keep that survivor vibe. But I think it really trained me to see the diamond in the rough because when I go to an antique store or a kind of like a flea market, I am really good at spotting valuable things. But I'll take you on a little bit of an antique tour here and a gift tour. This I actually got. This is an egg, a porcelain egg that I got at the estate sale of the one of the heiresses of Southern Comfort in the Solana Beach area. I used to go to a lot of estate sales in Southern California, and I would find amazing deals because the wealth there is incredible, and these people would have mansions and furniture and art and things they didn't use, and once they retired or died, they just liquidated everything, and I would get these things for like $2. This is a gift from Maita Pinard when Frank and I got married, and this is a hand-blown piece of art from Simon Pierce, and she gave that to us. It is one of my treasured gifts that we got at the beginning. This probably, I don't know, it was a gift, but it's worth a ton of money. It's very fragile. We have to keep it really careful here. And this is a gift from one of my girlfriends, Carolina. She saw me when we were vacationing in the south of France. She lives in Italy. She is one of my sorority sisters, and she gave this to me as a gift. And this is 130 years old. This is a vase, and I ordered this on eBay, and unfortunately, it came broken, and the person refunded me and said, keep it. And so what I did was I got some epoxy glue and some gold leaf, mixed it together, and I glued it back together. And this is a wax figurine that I got from a place here in Villepin, and it is a brocante, and I've talked about this before in our adventures. And this really nice guy named Olivier at his brocante, I bought this from him for about $60, but it is a 1930s piece, and it is a face that has been wax molded. And right here, I got this. I kind of call it my Gogina, but it's actually called Big John. I got this from an antique dealer in Vista, California, who was a neighbor of mine named Kevin. And he dealt in various antiques, really cool stuff. And I bought this piece from him because I wanted a bulldog piece of art because we have bulldogs. And this was so funny because he said his niece wanted it, but he said he was holding out for it, as he knew deep down somebody was destined to buy this. And I bought this from him. I don't even know. I think $125. And I got an amazing deal. And somebody painted their bulldog, had a portrait done and framed of their bulldog named Big John. And we just love this little picture. It's just so cute. And it really does capture the love of the bulldog and their protectiveness. This is a lithograph from an artist named Therese Marie that I got as a graduation gift from one of my best friends in college, Rachel Evans. And she's a doctor now, but we work together as real estate assistants for Wendy at Red Door Realty Group in Jacksonville, Florida, and we had the time of our lives working for her. We loved working for Wendy, and Wendy is still one of my best friends today, who I consider a sister. So Rachel, Wendy, and I were like this trio, real estate girls working together. And Wendy at the time wanted us to go to kind of like an art tour in Jacksonville, and she bought some art. And as a gift, Rachel bought this for me. And this is significant because this is a place in Jacksonville, Florida called Five Points. And at the time, it was like a queer community hub. And when you were living in the South, it's just very religious and very segregated. Five Points was kind of that place where queer people, colored people, poor people, immigrants could come together and coexist. And it was like a fun, funky artist place. And being a punker indie girl myself, I definitely spent a lot of time in Five Points. And Rachel knew that, and she bought that for me in appreciation. And this is really like a modern impressionistic piece of a place called Nicotine. And right next to it is a place called Fuel, which unfortunately I have a horrible story. One of my friends got roofied there and had a visitation from God. I think the guy was trying to roofie me, and my girlfriend took the wrong drink. But anyway, crazy stories. But that's life. That's young life, and that's one of the many adventures of our life. And she bought this for like $99, and I got it framed in San Diego and Point Loma. I think at the time, I think it was like $300 just to frame it. And again, when you're young, you have no money, and people give you things, you treasure them. And this is one of my pieces of art that has traveled the entire world with me. And it reminds me of how far I've come, the adventures that I had. It reminds me of my roots and my personality, and kind of like being somebody who dances to the beat of her own drums, and that there are places in the world, communities in the world, who will embrace you for your uniqueness. And this piece always reminds me of that. And not to mention, I love primary colors: red, green, blue, orange. I mean, not orange, yellow. That's kind of like my color palette that I really like. But it does remind me a lot of like, hey, remember how far you've come, and friendship means everything, especially when you're trying to live your most authentic life and be your truest self. Here we are on my spiral staircase on one of the floors, and this is my art. I am not a professional artist. I did study contemporary and modern art at the University of North Florida. I did study drawing with Nofa Dixon as a part of my educational program, and I am self-taught. And part of that is just going to different galleries in the world and really going super close to all the artwork that I see and studying their brushstrokes and studying techniques. I am not somebody who is classically trained. I do not have any expertise whatsoever. And more importantly, I have very little patience. I will only do a paint project for a few hours, a couple of days, and then I'm done. I just don't have that kind of dedication. So I'm not a professional artist by any means. And more importantly, I am just inspired by the things and the people that I love. Here's a portrait of a picture that I took of my daughter. She was sitting on a neighbor's yard, which had a hill, and it was covered in the springtime with poppies. And she's with her umbrella and her teddy bear that she would carry around with her. His name is Badger. She would not go anywhere without him. And this was her, I think, 5 or 6 years old. And I wanted to capture that moment. This is a picture of my husband, Franck, who I captured on the south of France in the Bay of Cavalier. And I just thought it was so handsome, and he's so gorgeous, and he inspires me every day. And I thought it was kind of funny because it reminded me of Curious George, the man in the yellow hat, which is what I call this portrait. And above me here is just a portrait of the people in my life, my elders who have passed away, Franck's grandparents, my grandmother. And I kind of consider that as like the river of life, that bridge, that water bridge between us and the spirit realm, and they are waiting for us on the other side to reunite with us someday. And it is painted from the perspective of Frank's aunt Babette, with whom I became really good friends, and she was the godmother of my daughter. And I loved her so much. She was such a wild character. She was blonde, and she was a big, overweight, plus size girl. And she was a librarian at one of the world's most beautiful libraries in the world. And it was called the Carnegie Library. And she just, I don't know, she was luminous for me. And we got to know her when we lived in Reims, France for 9 months. And I fell in love with her personality. She was really kind. And I paint it from her point of view when she passed away, and I'm so grateful for her presence in my life, and I do feel her spirit a lot. So for me, I'm not really an artist. I love artists. I appreciate artists, and I want to support artists, but I don't consider myself a professional artist. But I think in my soul I am an artist, a writer, a painter, an interior decorator, a gardener. But I would have to say that art for me is just a mode of expression rather than a trade. Here on our second floor landing is art that I had commissioned when we lived in South Florida. It was our 1 year wedding anniversary, and I wanted something really interesting to capture our love between Frank and I. And we are both water signs. I'm a Cancer, he's a Pisces. And I wanted something that kind of symbolized water and our water sign. And this, for me, is a commission of being underwater and seeing the light shining through the water. And it is plaster on canvas. And this is an artist from South Florida named Jen Haley who did this work for me, and I really appreciate it. This is something we have dragged all over the world in all our moves internationally and nationally. This one is Carol Centani. I saw this piece of art in an exhibition in San Marcos Civic Center. My daughter was doing some theater there, and I saw this piece, and I just instantly was like, I need to buy this piece. And it is in oil, and I had the Civic Center contact her, and she sold it to me. And it's just this gorgeous piece of art. The quality here, I don't know, it touched me. And I love horses, I love animals, and I also love this big bright piece of art. And I wanted to kind of put it here and juxtaposition it. I do have a rug that I have here of a zebra, so it kind of goes with my zebra vibe. And more creative stuff that I have found in gem fairs and flea markets. And you can't see it, but I actually have more art down here that I have bought from people over the years. That was somebody from our church and some stuff that we've inherited. So I just kind of have this like art pile here. The last but not least artist that I want to share with you is Tara Flores. She was somebody that I had coached when I lived in Southern California, and she and I did trades for my time. And so she made this commission for me, and this is a representation of the south of France and the mimosas and the bougainvilleas and the water of the Côte d'Azur and the light that you see. And this is a triptych that she did for me. Her art is definitely growing in value. And so for me, it was an amazing gift to be able to work with her. And I do find that the stuff that she does is worth investing in. And I put it here on my landing because it goes with my nature vibe. And this piece she also did as well. So if you are interested in just bright stuff, abstract stuff, and you want to support women artists, I definitely recommend supporting Tara Flores. What you see here are woven photographs. These are two in a set of three that I bought from my friend Marcelo Bengochea. Now, Marcelo is not the artist, he is the weaver. His story is very tragic. Marcelo is a friend of mine who I met in 2006 in Lucadia, California. And he told me a very sad story at that time that his brother, the photographer Fernando Bengochea, had passed away tragically in Sri Lanka due to the tsunami. He was on a holiday with his partner, who you know as Oprah's interior designer, Nate Berkus, and they were caught in the tsunami. And unfortunately, he was lost in the tsunami. And you also recognize this image as one of the most famous photographs in the world. It was sold by IKEA in their stores all over the world, and so famous and so mysterious that they did a documentary about the journey of Fernando and this particular iconic image of Amsterdam. And so, being friends with Marcelo throughout the years, I've done different collaboration with him. I did an interview with him for my series Drive. He was CEO of Superbrand at the time. And Marcelo had talked about doing these woven photographs of his brother's work and honoring him. So I bought three of these from Marcelo, one of the US, New York, Amsterdam, and one of a skull. And I had these specially framed by an organization here in France that hire special needs individuals to make these custom frames. And because these are woven, I actually had multiple mats done so you can actually see the woven aspect of the photograph. These images are kind of haunting for me because when I look at them, I feel like I am standing in Fernando's feet and seeing the place at that moment, at the time when he's looking through the camera. I don't know why, but that's the experience I have. And I put this in my bedroom because these for me are symbols of love that crosses time, space, and dimension. Because Marcelo, who is a really cool guy, just always has been so kind to me. And the way he speaks about his brother and his love for his brother always touches my heart. And that relationship dynamic, even though his brother is in the spirit, definitely always makes me think about how we are connected across time, space, and dimension. And when we say goodbye to these individuals, whether or not we even get that chance in this scenario, that we can honor the lives and the work of the loved ones who have touched our lives and who have been on our path. So I consider these treasures, but it's also a testament of love. And it is a testament of the grief of that separation of the people that we love in our life. And that's a part of life. And as somebody who is a medium and who has counseled and helped many people whose family have been lost to tragedy, murder, accidents, disease, old age, it is a part of that journey of living and being a compassionate, humble human being and loving each other through the hardest times of our life. So this is a set of art that I treasure. It's in my room. I look at it every day. I meditate from it, and I honor Fernando and Marcelo's efforts. And, love across all time, space, and dimension. So what you see right here on the top floor of my house of the spiral staircase is a set of 4 photos from the photographer Grant Brittain. If you are into skateboarding, Transworld magazine, you know who Grant Brittain is. My husband got these directly from Grant, the Nixon crew, when my husband worked at Nixon in Encinitas, California, as a product manager for their men's watches and their other lines like Star Wars, Adidas, etc. So he got these from them when he worked at Nixon. And, you have some of the most famous people in skateboarding here in iconic skateboarding poses as they are in the action. You have Rodney Mullen. So if you are my age and older, you know who Rodney Mullen is and you can appreciate. You have 2 from Rodney here, but you can just see how meditative and artistic the actual sport is. And it's just so much fun to have this imagery that is so iconic to like the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, skateboarding, surfing in Southern California. Having lived in North County, San Diego, being the mecca of surf, skate, and snow with Big Bear and Mammoth, you know that Grant Brittain and these iconic images are part of your consciousness as a skater, a surfer, a snowboarder, like my husband and myself. The coolest connection is we actually got to see Grant before we left for France, moving away from San Diego at Larry Balma's birthday party. It was a big, big birthday party for Larry Balma. And if you don't know who he is, he's one of the co-founders of Transworld magazine. He is an amazing friend of mine. His daughter, Lori, like I told you earlier with Evan Shoman, she is one of my best friends. And so this little world of skateboarding and surfing, we all know each other. It is very small. I myself, having coached in the action sports industry, as I mentioned before, with my work at Malachi.com as a career contributor, I have met so many people in my career as an action sports life and career coach to professional athletes, their wives, professionals in different companies like Vans and Volcom, Nixon, Adidas, like all of these sports companies. That's how I met people. And this collection we actually had framed recently. And if you notice the frames, they're kind of like this asphalty vibe, very concrete, very rough, very punk, very alternative, very fringes of society. And we put this up here because this stairwell leads to my husband's office. And that is where all his cool stuff is. It's kind of his man cave and his treasure trove of his nerd goods and his surfing and his skateboarding stuff and his music and his books. And that room is a testament to his career in action sports that I helped him get into and rise into, and the relationships and the career that he and I built as a result of our passion for surfing, snow, skate. And our marriage has a lot of surfing and snowboarding in it. We're big surfer snowboarders, and we as a couple had a lot of fun and a lot of memories with action sports. But eventually we aged out of that and moved into other things. Like I did celebrity and he did medical devices, and the more older you get, you kind of phase out of it, but the memories still remain. I hope you enjoyed this trip around my house of my art tour. To be honest with you, I have way more art. I have rugs, I have statues, I have so much more, but these are the iconic pieces that I consider are the stepping stones of my life and career and relationships. My advice is if you are collecting art or you're passionate about art, let it be a reflection of your journey. Let it be a part of the documentation of your life story, because all of us are writing a life story. And the question is, what's the story that you are telling? So thanks for joining me on this episode of Lesie and Castelnaudary. If you enjoyed any of these pieces, please let me know in the comments and tell me which art inspires you.